Tottenham were better in the second half, but really disappointing in the first. What's the situation with Thomas Frank now? Because there were boos at half-time in the game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and it wasn't very impressive, that first 45 minutes. I said to you actually on the phone, Crook, well, they were better in the second half, and you said, yeah, but how much influence did the manager have at half-time? Or was it another situation that the players took it upon themselves to try and change tack?
Yeah, certainly that's the impression I got, that the players got themselves together at half time and almost held their own team talk, as has happened on more than one occasion this season. I think you can see that there's an issue between Thomas Frank and the players. I'm not sure that they're buying into him, as we've been saying for a while. And from what I'm told, there's a bit of a split at the board level. You know, there's a lot of people there who are thinking this isn't going to work out. There are others who want to give Thomas Frank more time, as I think he deserves personally. But you know what really wound me up about this game, and I mentioned this again when we were on Friday after the scenes between the players and the fans at Bournemouth. João Paulinho trying to be the tough guy after full time, you know, getting in the face of Ollie Watkins as he was celebrating with the Villa fans. It's too late, you know. That's optics for the cameras. Don't start showing your fighting spirit now. Actually, Paulinho played pretty well in the game, but my point is that Tottenham players too often just play up to the cameras after they've lost a game, when actually the fans, I'm sure, would much rather see more fight during the 90 minutes, because there was no fight in that first half at all. But they made it far too easy for Aston Villa, who, to be fair, named a much stronger team than I thought Unai Emery would. I thought Morgan Rogers, for one, would be rested, but he wasn't. And, you know, Aston Villa's season continues to go from strength to strength.
And they're a very good side, Aston Villa, by the way. So that Tottenham were always up against it. This is the third best team in the land. They picked Tottenham apart in that first half with brilliant attacking play, super one-touch football on the edge of the penalty area, which opened them up for the first goal. Second goal, well taken by Rodgers, who's terrific. They've got huge amounts of talent. And look, they don't have that Tottenham Hotspur, I don't think, not in the same way that Aston Villa do in terms of the level of quality in the squad. And that is a problem for Thomas Frank as well. But Crook's absolutely right. Pedro Porro sitting on the bench, throwing his arms around because a decision went against Tottenham right at the end of the game. Guys, the game started at 5:45. That's when you need to be at your very best, your hungriest and your most ardent, not when you're sitting on the bench after the game's already gone.
Yeah, I mean, I have a degree of sympathy for Thomas Frank. I have to be honest, and maybe as a Spurs fan and Spurs man, that I don't want another managerial change. None of them are working. It's been a problem forever. It's been in charge, so we have to look deeper at the problems. And I think with no Kulusevski, no Madison, no Solanke this season, three players that would make a huge difference. And again, my issues are with player recruitment. Spurs have spent about 200 or 300 million on essentially six of the same player. And here you go, Tell, Moani, Manor Solomon joined the club, Brendan Johnson. There's about you can Chavi Simmons could be in that. They can be effective players. Odebear, Kudus, but none of them have become an effective goal scorer, a creative player. And you could pick any of those players. Matthias Tell was another one. And so the Spurs have spent the money. I mean, they have injured players. They have players away in AFCON duty. I'm not making excuses for Thomas Frank. He doesn't need me to do that. But I think, again, this goes down to player recruitment. We've got Dominic Solanke, Richarlison. Solanke's been missing. Richarlison has been the only option up front. He's not been prolific. He's never been prolific. It's just that
And now he's injured.
Yeah, and I look at Spurs and I think we do. People say they don't spend the money. They do, but they just haven't spent it wisely. And when you look at the performance of the weekend, kind of sums up where Spurs are.
They do spend the money, but they spend the money on what they think is potential and on wages that are lower than most others in the Premier League. So if you look at their annual wage turnover, they're bottom half, right? So, and if you speak to any CEO of a football club, they'll tell you what you spend on wages usually translates to where you finish in the league table. So it should be no surprise. You know, look at Portsmouth. Portsmouth we've just been talking about moments ago. They're 23rd in terms of playing budget in the Championship. They're 21st. So they're actually punching above their average. Last year, they were probably the same, but managed to stay in the division. So that shows that John Mousinho actually is working very well with the group that he has got. You know, and listen, Thomas Frank is probably it's got nothing to do with this situation, because this is a situation that's been going on for years and years and years, as you've been saying. And now they're losing Fabio Paratici, who's only just come back from a ban. He's going off to pastures new. So Johan Lange is going to be in charge of player recruitment. But they're not going to do anything in this transfer window. As I said, I think it was New Year's Day, I think Crook and I were on air together, and I said on New Year's Day that I'd had a whisper that they've decided that unless they could get a big name player, and that was Semenyo, they didn't get him, they weren't going to spend the big money in the January transfer window. So Thomas Frank, who says they're working very hard and they're all aligned to get bodies in for short-term and long-term success, is going to have to work with what he's got, I'm afraid.